Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. Today, we are going to talk about the 2021 economic outlook for you, no matter who you are or where you are. Thought I would start the year off right, give you all real tangible advice, something to look forward to, maybe some tools so you can financially plan for the next year. I know there were many articles that came out before the holidays about, all the things you could do with your $600 check and the ways you could really invest that to set yourself up for success, after you sit home for another year with no job, getting absolutely no more help from the federal government. So first, to determine your 2021 financial outlook, it's going to depend on where you are entering the year. For the purposes of this teaching moment, I think we'll just kind of split everybody between, two groups. We'll say people who have everything and, everybody else. So if you were a billionaire in 2020, the future for you in 2021 is very bright. If you were only a multimillionaire in 2020, and then became a billionaire, I don't know. It might be a little dicey for you. So let's review real quick what this looks like. It's been a year of pandemic-driven lockdowns, political upheaval, and especially for the planet's richest people, incredible wealth gains. With major stock markets soaring high, Forbes estimates that the 2,200 billionaires in the world have collectively gotten $1.9 trillion richer in 2020. Whew. Let me tell you, I was very concerned with what was going on with the super wealthy, because of the trickle down. So obviously, the more money the super wealthy have, the more money we're going to have as the benevolence trickles downhill like a person peeing on an anthill. But I've been told that's how it works. So if all these really, really rich people got even more richer, that should be better for us, right? That's the thing. It's not a thing. The world's billionaires are worth an estimated $11.4 trillion based on Forbes calculations, which is up 20% from a collective wealth of $9.5 trillion this time last year. Damn. It's almost like if you're really, really rich, it's a lot easier to get more wealth than it is if you're poor. I should look into being rich. I feel like that would be a better life move. America's billionaire class had a smashing 2020. Altogether, the more than 600 U.S. billionaires are worth $4 trillion, a gain of $560 billion since the beginning of the year, aided by record-breaking stock markets. The S&P 500, sitting near all-time highs, is up 13% this year, despite the March COVID crash. The NASDAQ is up 38%. Hey, remember back in March when the economy was cratering and all these corporations, they held out their hands and went, Please, sir, could I have a crust of bread, please? Please, sir, I haven't eaten in 12 minutes. Please, sir, please, more. May I have more? And so the federal government just gave away trillions of dollars to corporations who then promptly fired everybody and took all the money and bought back stocks so that their stock prices went up. Does anybody remember that? Yeah, because that happened. And of course, no one in the world had it better in 2020 than Elon Musk, whose fortune has grown an astonishing $110 billion this year to nearly $137 billion, making him the third richest person in the world. This is the part of the show where I remind you that Elon Musk still hasn't built shit. He's paid a few people who have made some things, and he's bought some businesses where other people have made stuff, but ultimately, Elon Musk hasn't made shit, except for a bunch of really bad tweets. But the hundreds of millions of dollars he gets in corporate welfare is most assuredly floating his way inflated stock price even higher. Seriously, Tesla barely sold 500,000 cars. But sure, his stock price is up 630% on the back of tons of federal subsidies. So Jeff Bezos had the second best year out of all the billionaires in America. He's now worth $182 billion, which is up $67.5 billion in 1 year. Also, it's crazy how every single grocery store and bodega and mom and pop store and convenience store and restaurant and bar is getting shut down locally, but on a national level, big box retailers like Walmart and Target are still open, and Amazon shipping and freight centers are open. So basically, the only people allowed to make money in this current environment are the people who could pay to get on the list of places that gets to stay open. So it looks like 2021 is going to be pretty damn good if you're super wealthy. Now, let's check out how things are going for everybody else in the end of 2020 leading into 2021 so we can have a good lead indicator of what the near future is going to look like for them. During Maryland rent moratorium, more landlords using legal loophole as means to evict. There are similar stories and articles to this in most states if you just click around and type it into the Googles. So in Baltimore, they have an additional layer for housing court, which is known as tenant holding over court. And in tenant holding over court, a landlord can take action against a tenant whose lease is expired without having to provide an actual codified reason for not extending or not renewing their lease. This is, quote, legal, and the more landlords that find out about it in the Baltimore area, and now thanks to this article, I'm pretty sure all of them are going to know about it, there's been a continuous uptick in this since they found out about it and started squeezing. In August and September, there were 233 tenant holdover cases filed in Baltimore District Court, which was an 82% increase over the year before. Tenant advocates and legal experts say the recourse functions as a loophole for landlords seeking to evict during the public health crisis, which has entered a new phase of surging case counts, hospitalizations, and deaths. It underscores the disparate economic outcomes imposed by the forces of the pandemic, which has disproportionately impacted low and middle class workers, especially Black women with children, who are more likely to be behind on rent payments than any other group. Quote, the law permits a landlord to regain possession of an apartment under a month-to-month tenancy after sending written notice. Tenants who do not move out after the notice period are subject to an order of repossession from the court. The landlord wants to get through the back door what he can't get through the front. We're seeing an increase of landlords finding alternative ways to evict tenants. So this would appear to be a poor lead indicator of things to come in 2021 for people who are renting and currently have no income thanks to the COVID. It looks like more federal inactivity combined with large loopholes that landlords continue to find and or create are going to lead to a massive uptick in evictions and homelessness. Meanwhile, in states and areas where landlords can't kick their tenants out illegally and can't find a loophole, well, it would appear there's a much easier and more direct way to deal with removing those tenants. 3 dead and 4 injured in Queens house fire. The site of the fire, a house in the Elmhurst section of Queens, repeatedly drew complaints about overcrowding, according to city records. I wonder why a building would be overcrowded. How does that happen? 3 people were killed and 2 firefighters injured in a fire Saturday morning at a house in Queens that for years drew complaints that it was overcrowded and illegally modified in an apparent attempt to fit more tenants, according to fire officials and city records. Firefighters were called to the house at 5:30 in the morning and found the 3-story building engulfed in flames. Fire had reached every floor of the house. 2 bodies were found on the 2nd floor and another was found on the 3rd floor. Quote, "This is just sad. It's heartbreaking," said Donovan Richards, the Queensborough president. "There is no other way to describe it." Well, unless I'm wrong, it sounds to me like there was a landlord trying to stack people 12 deep in a building to extract the maximum amount of income that they could while offering the fewest amount of protections and sureties for the people renting space in his building. Since 2001, 35 complaints have been lodged with the New York City Department of Buildings about the house. More than a dozen complaints have been filed in the past 2 years. In October of 2019, there were between 18 and 20 people living in the building, even though it had a vacate order. Quote, "The entirety of this house, including the garage, has been illegally converted into several rooms for rent," one complaint said. "The garage is in very bad condition and the house looks like it's about to fall down. Many of the inhabitants are immigrants who share beds, switching off for 12 hours at a time while they are working because they can't afford to live in better conditions." Yes, that's right. A substantial number of the people who cook your food, and clean your stores, and build your roads, and mow your lawn, those people have timeshares. Yeah, not like your timeshare in Kissimmee, where families go to see the fucking Magic Mouse and you make $2,000 just for existing and having capital. No. They're doing timeshares on a daily basis where they rent out a room for just as many hours a day as they can sleep before they get back up and go to 1 or 2 or 3 jobs to clean your shit, make your shit, or cook your shit. And landlords like this are more than happy to take a 12 by 12 garage, carve it up into a bunch of 4 by 4 slots, and rent those out to people like cattle pens. Why? Because they're people who exist outside the system. So of course, you can take advantage of them a lot easier because it's not like they're going to go run into the cops. The fire is emblematic of the problem of a lack of affordable housing that has forced poor residents to squeeze together in unsafe homes to save money. Quote, it's not the fault of the tenants, it's the fault of the landlords who chop up their basements and are more interested in making a profit than the safety of their tenants. This problem is not going to go away. We're going to see a lot more of these particular incidents. And just to give you a little more perspective on how shit this particular situation was, man describes harrowing escape from deadly Queen's fire. Yeah, that's what it looks like when a building that 20 people live in goes up like a Roman candle. Gee, again, I wonder what happened. Could it be because it was unsafe and he was stacking people like slaves in the bottom of a ship in the 1500s or something? A Queens man who barely escaped a suspicious house fire that killed 3 other tenants is haunted each day since by their terrified cries for help. Quote, my head still plays them screaming for help and me looking at them, said the shaken former tenant who recounted that horrible night in Elmhurst. Moments before his home caught on fire, the man, who asked not to be identified, was jolted awake by a strange noise and then thrown into darkness. It was like the sound of a gas burner before it ignites, he recalled. Next, there was a crashing boom, and then whatever lights were still on shut off. The FDNY has yet to determine the cause of the fire. The blaze, now deemed suspicious, is being investigated as a possible arson. The first floor tenant, who'd been paying about $700 a month in rent, said he and about half a dozen others living in the Elmhurst home had struggled with new landlords in recent months, claiming they wanted them out of the building, even at one point turning off the utilities. Ah, yes, you freeze out the cockroaches so they go running out, and then you take your building and you flip it into some shit-ass multi-million-dollar pencil condo. Yeah. The tenant had met landlord Eric Chen a couple of times and said in September or October, the landlord asked him how much money he wanted to be paid to move out. After the fire, police and fire marshals asked him what he knew about Chen and what communications he had with him. The tenant said, adding he reported the landlord's effort to get him out to the authorities. The authorities then showed him a video of someone entering the home's yard before dawn on December 19th and then walking away 15 to 20 minutes later. He said the man was wearing a black coat. He told police he couldn't identify the person in the footage. A police canine found traces of an accelerant at the property. Police sources told the Post that traces of an accelerant were also found on gloves inside of Eric Chen's car. They've seized his SUV as well as computer equipment. A neighbor told the Post the building owner wanted to sell the property and was allegedly frustrated by occupants who wouldn't budge. I would have to say this is a very bad lead indicator for the working class for things to come in 2021, considering that in the last month, landlords have been finding loopholes to kick people out, and when that doesn't work, they're just burning the buildings down to get rid of them. Doesn't matter how many people are in the building, they're still going to burn it down anyway. Why? Because when you're very wealthy and you exist in a system that solely helps wealthy people get wealthier at the expense of the poor, you believe you can get away with anything because most of the time you will. Stay organized, everybody, and keep your eye on the prize. My name is James. I am from the internet, and I'm out. Peace.